I want to share with you a really interesting story of bipartisanship here in Oregon. And I know you might be saying, like, what bipartisanship in 2025 in the United States of America? Yeah, wild, right? And actually, I really want you to hang in there with me on this story because there's a twist at the end. According to a report from the Oregonian on September 3rd, a Democrat and a Republican are teaming up to try to ban masked law enforcement here in Oregon. There's been talk about this for a while, and you might say, like, well, California and communities in New York, they've been pushing no secret police acts. Why didn't Oregon try to do this sooner? It's because we don't have a full-time legislature here. Our legislators, they have other jobs, they have real jobs, and we have a part-time short legislative session. So they've been on a break. They couldn't get this done any earlier. We could talk about whether or not Tina Kotek should have called a special session just for that, but whatever. While other states have tried to push forward bills, what we're seeing here in Oregon is a little bit different. A Republican from Tillamook on the coast, Cyrus Javity, and a Democrat, Tom Anderson, from the Salem metro area, are working together to try to get support from state lawmakers for a proposed constitutional amendment that will go on next year's ballot. That would ban what lawmakers describe as secret police. The proposal itself would prohibit law enforcement officers from wearing face coverings and would require them to wear official uniforms with badge numbers and names. Now, it would not apply to SWAT teams or undercover police, obviously. Javity said Oregonians shouldn't have to wonder who's knocking on their door in the middle of the night. In a free society, the people who enforce the law should never be faceless or unaccountable. Anderson said, when I see masked, anonymous quasi-law enforcement ICE employees out on our streets making violent, warrantless arrests, I am aghast and angry. Secret police have no place in a free and democratic society because public trust in government erodes when you don't know who's enforcing the law. Earlier this year, attorneys general from New York and Michigan sent a letter to members of Congress saying that masked agents arresting people without warrants and without identifying themselves, quote, has the effect of terrorizing communities rather than protecting them. Additionally, the International Association of the Chiefs of Police warned last month that when agents cover their faces, it creates confusion, fear, and mistrust among community members and responding agencies. Oregon Senator Ron Wyden has introduced a bill that would require ICE agents across the nation to wear identification and would ban them from covering their faces while on duty. Just real quick here, this is what I mean about seeing nuance, y'all. I disagree with Ron's position on Israel. I disagree with the AIPAC money that he's taken, but at the same time, there's many ways in which he's fighting for the Constitution, for democracy, for justice for the Epstein victims, and for Oregonians. No politician is going to be all good or all bad, unless maybe we're talking about Stephen Miller and Mike Johnson, and they're definitely all bad. But this is an encouraging bipartisan effort, right? Here is a Republican who sees sense and is like, this is not what I signed up for. Why is my party supporting this? This is not doing right by Oregonians. We've got to do something about it. Now, unfortunately, I think a constitutional amendment, while it would have so much weight behind it, if it won't be on the ballot until 2026, a lot of harm can be done between now and then. Yeah, unfortunately, the wheels of justice move slow, and the wheels of the legislative branch also move very, very slowly. I don't think these efforts are fruitless. I think it's important that in whatever ways we can all resist, that we continue to do so, even if ultimately some of those ways are not successful or the remedy is far too slow in the coming, right? Now, I want to tell you the update to this story, the little twist. Because 2 days after Democrat Tom Anderson and Republican Cyrus Javity announced this bipartisan effort, Republican Representative Cyrus Javity switched his registration from Republican to Democrat. Now, I don't think what Cyrus Javity did is getting enough attention. He's not getting enough praise for this. I have been saying since the big, nasty, bloated budget bill got passed, and I think my congresswoman calls it the big betrayal, Republicans knew, they heard from their constituents, we don't want you to pass this. They knew it was deeply unpopular. They knew it would be deeply harmful to the constituents of their districts, and they voted for it anyway because Donald Trump strong-armed them. He threatened them. Since that day, I have said the Republican Party has proved itself to be a fully consolidated fascist party. The Republican Party, as we have known it in America, is dead. It is a party that answers to Donald Trump, not to the Constitution, not to their constituents. They have betrayed both the Constitution and their constituents in order to serve Donald Trump. They are a fascist party. If you continue to be a Republican in the United States of America in 2025, you are serving fascism. And so when we see Republicans who say, I can't do this, I cannot support the direction that my party has decided to take, I am compelled to change my registration, understanding that that is a political risk for me, understanding that that will be unpopular and will carry consequences, and yet I'm willing to do it. We need to be giving those folks their flowers. They need all of the praise and support from us. Even though there may be lots of things we don't agree with them on, they're willing to take a stand against the fascist party of Donald Trump. If we're looking at eroding those pillars of support under the regime, one of them is Republicans on a state level. How do you get them to be non-compliant with fascism? Republicans in the Texas House and Senate, yeah, they betrayed everybody. They're operating absolutely as not only appeasers, but collaborators with fascism. And so when we see state and local representatives who say, I can't, my conscience will not permit me, we've got to be supporting them. We've got to say thank you. Thank you for doing the right thing here. So what we're seeing here, Republican Cyrus Javity from Tillamook, Oregon, changing his affiliation from Republican to Democrat, that deserves our praise and support. According to Oregon Public Broadcasting, in his statement about the switch, Javity said, being an elected leader has never been about party loyalty to me. It's been about how I can best fight for our community and our state. Other Oregon Republicans have already been frustrated with Javity so far this year because he supported a bill that would make it more difficult to ban books in schools, and he also supported a resolution honoring Black drag performers in Oregon. So Javity, who is a dentist in his real life, remember, Oregon legislature, part-time. Of particular import here is that Javity was the only Republican this past week to cross the aisle and vote in favor of Tina Kotek's package that would have tax and fee hikes to fund road maintenance and avoid layoffs. The vote was decisive. Without his yes vote, the bill would have died in the House. He crossed the aisle and cast the deciding vote, and Republicans are ticked about it. But do you know what he said? He said, understanding that they're mad, there's going to be this recall effort now, understanding he might lose his job as an elected official as a result of this, he said, I think my job's worth the handful of jobs that this bill is going to save in Astoria if it comes to that, or the hundreds more it's going to save across the state. Damn, y'all. This is a man who's willing to lose his job to protect the jobs of his constituents in Astoria. Of course, Republicans in Oregon called him vile and a traitor after he did this. To me, I think this is an important story because it shows that there are Republicans around the country who are not down with what the fascist Republican Party is doing. I think it's also really important because it helps us humanize Republicans. I understand it's really easy. I'm guilty of doing it myself, of dehumanizing Republicans. And we have to remember that they are still people. When we remember someone's humanity, it's much easier to reach them and to convince them to become non-compliant with the fascists, right? As I said in another video, we have to remind ourselves of their humanity and remind them of ours. When we see Republicans who are willing to lose their jobs, when we see Republicans who are willing to leave their party in order to protect their constituents and to advocate for the rule of law, we've got to support those folks. We'll see where this potential constitutional amendment goes. I wish it didn't take so long to get pushed through. And I do want to say, Representative Javity, thank you. Thank you for being willing to stand up and do what's right. I hope other people around the country will follow your lead. I hope state and local officials in the Republican Party are questioning why it is that they are continuing to support fascism, and whether if they went a different way, they would actually be protecting their communities and able to sleep at night.